Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And in case you missed it last week, the Jacksonville Jaguars down 27 nothing come back and win in improbable fashion 31-30 at home in front of a raucous crowd waving teal towels everywhere. Amazing experience, I would say amazing experience to see on TV, but my next guest actually was there in person to see it all. Welcome to the show, everyone. For the first time, Mr. Travis Holmes. What's going on, man?
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate you having me, sir. It was an incredible experience, and I know we're going to get into it. I appreciate you having me on to chop it up, and hopefully, I can provide a little bit of insight. So it was a great experience, though.
I bet. Now, for those that aren't familiar, can you tell everyone a little bit about your writing journey and where you currently are now?
All right. Well, my writing journey, I guess, technically started. I'm a former UCF cornerback, University of Central Florida. Former graduate assistant up at the Northern Michigan University. Former, a lot of formers. Former SB Nation play analyst and Big Cat Country. The Jacksonville Jaguars fan site. Fantasy football expert. Currently, I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars consulting correspondent for the student of the game. Shout out to my guy, Kyle Nash, and A7BN Sports. So that's how I was, able to watch the team that I grew up loving, and get the backstage access behind the veil. So it's kind of a great situation for me. So I'm loving it.
Nice. So, a Jaguars fan, growing up a Jaguars fan, man, how was that?
Well, you can probably imagine. Growing up a Jaguars fan, it started out great. It's just like being Dallas Cowboys fan. If you're 30 to 40 years old, it started out really awesome. And we had the AFC Championship run. I should say the first one. And pretty much from the time that Tom Coughlin became a little bit of Rocky GM, it became a downhill experience. It's sort of like 2008, I guess, stock market. So you see, I have this shirt. This team makes me drink. That is the shirt that I am currently wearing because that is a shirt that I have basically had to wear for the last, I don't know, decade since Shad Khan took over the team. That is what the experience has historically been like, and I don't blame any Jags fans for taking the slow route and trusting the team, if that makes sense. Um, Before the season, didn't fully know how to feel about it, but I have a few witnesses. Hey, I predicted 9 wins and they won 9 games. I think I'm right in line in how I should feel about this team, and that was optimistic for me.
Got you. Now, I did have 8 wins for this team, so I wasn't
All
too
right,
far off.
all right, close.
Uh, but how is it? How is the experience covering your team?
It is a problem. It is a real problem. I got in trouble my first game because I cheered in the press box. That was
Oh
that
yeah, you
was
can't
some.
do that.
Yeah, no one told me that at first. It was a weird. I forget what the play was. I know it was a turnover on defense, and I'm clapping and I'm jumping up, and they all looked at me like I was an alien, and it was a real problem because he's like, no, you can't, you can't do that in here. You can't. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to learn that. And so I've now gotten my little system in place that I have to ask, "Hey, is that all right? Is this all right? Oh, I can do this. I just can't say anything out loud. Okay. Just learning the tricks of the trade. This season has been crazy though because we've seen some incredible home games in Jacksonville. Multiple games down by 17 plus, and we win all of them at home. Uh, some crazy endings of the games like we saw this past week, and the Cowboys game with the interception return for a touchdown. It's been just crazy, but it's been awesome for me personally, at least.
Now you got into it, and we're going to get into it a little bit now. But Saturday night, the Chargers come to town, down 27 nothing, come all the way back, win the game 31-30. Can you just describe the atmosphere there down in Jacksonville?
Oh, the atmosphere. Goodness. It was insane. I mean, just before we even get into that, it was insane in downtown Jacksonville at the time of the game. There was multiple concerts within a 2 block radius of the stadium. You had the Cat Williams comedy special, which he wasn't scheduling that thinking that there was going to be a home playoff game going on 1 block from the stadium. So when I tell you, even before the game, it was as thick as Walmart on a Black Friday, and after the game, it was insane also because they're letting out all these concerts, everything's going on, and the Jaguars won. Oh, it was insane. But then you're talking 35 degrees in Florida, and you still have a rocking crowd of 70,000 plus just losing it. And most of them, if not all, generally the majority of them are Jaguar fans. The Los Angeles crowd doesn't travel that well. That's not like playing against Buffalo or someone like that. So it was almost all Jags fans, and they were out there, bearing the cold. And for the first quarter, they were out of it a little bit just because you scored a touchdown. All right. Home crowd's out of it a little bit. You score 27 points straight and 5 turnovers in the first quarter and a half. Yeah, that'll take the crowd out of it a little bit. But start of the third quarter, they're right back in it. They are amped. They are ready. They've seen this team come back too many times by 17, and they're only down by 20 at half. Oh yeah, they still. I think they all knew that there's a chance because we still have that quarterback. So it was great.
Right. Speaking of that quarterback, we'll get into that, but the comeback when they were down 27-0, what were the thoughts going through your head? Did you really think they could come back from 27-0 down?
All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. I gotta be real honest. When they were down 20-0, I said to multiple people around me, all right, I'm not worried yet. I'm not worried. I'm not. And I believe that 2 of the interceptions were like fluke plays. One was, on 4th down. It should have been pass interference, and the refs just didn't call it. All right, cool. When they got 27-0 and the Chiefs had the ball going, like driving, I won't lie to you. I don't think any fan would honestly admit that they weren't a little bit, nervous. And that was a problem for me. I was honestly out of it at that point. And I think Justin Herbert for overthrowing Keenan Allen on that seam route wide open. I mean, this is high school football wide open, and he missed it. And that play, and I hate to break down a football game to one play, but that play would have ended the game for all intents and purposes for any football coach, realistically, had he made that throw. And I don't blame Justin Herbert for the Chargers losing this game in and of itself, because he basically just missed like 2 throws that I would call like throws he has to make. But if he makes those 2, either one of those 2 throws, the game's probably over, realistically. But at that time, I was out. I won't lie to you. I was out. I'm like, nope. And then the Jaguars scored with 4 minutes left. And if you don't mind, let me get into that. Piece. The Chargers defense, they played an incredible first quarter and a half. Their defensive coordinator came prepared. You knew it was a revenge game, right? They did exactly what the Tennessee Titans did against the Jaguars in Week 18. I know that's your team. You know the Titans. They played that old Nick Saban cover 3 switch. And for any Alabama fans, that's basically, it looks a lot like man coverage, but it really is just cover 3 and depends on the route combinations. It ends up looking by the end of the play like they played like some sort of man coverage. That's what they played the first quarter and a half. 3 of the 4 interceptions that the Chargers got came off that one coverage. The Jaguars that week just installed a game plan saying we're going to run 2-by-2 sets, 2 receivers to each side of the field, or 2 receivers, 1 receiver and a tight end on the other side, whatever it may be. And they played that cover 3 switch, and Trevor struggled. He struggled badly against it, just like he struggled against Tennessee to start the game. And so Doug just said at 4 minutes left in the second quarter, we're throwing out the game plan. We're not running anything that's a 2-by-2 set. They went from running majority 2-by-2 sets for the first quarter and a half. It was over 80%. I forget the exact numbers, to running it less than 19% the rest of the game. They just ran trips, empty sets, quads. They ran everything but that for the rest of the game to make sure that they just couldn't run that cover 3 switch, and made them play the Jaguars straight up. And then he just exposed the coverages. Trevor nearly had a perfect QBR for the rest of the game simply because of that switch. And it was just great coaching. He pencil whipped them in that way.
Well, I did say before this game that Dougie P would outcoach Coach Staley on the other side. So, I did know that was coming, but you got to give it up for the guts of Dougie P. I call him Dougie P, and they ain't gonna call him Dougie P. They call him Dougie P in Philly still anyway. But anyway, to go for the Go for the two after the penalty, and just have that play. That took guts to do that. And then also took guts that running play on the fourth down where you had the full house backfield. You handed it off to Travis Etienne and he gets what, like 15, 20 yards, if not more.
Yeah.
That was it took a lot of guts to run those plays, man. What can you say just about the guts of Dougie P calling these plays? Did you see that coming? Did you see him going a little Brandon Staley on y'all? Or did you see him just, making some magical things happen?
I, I will say he is who he is. Like Doug Peterson has always been this guy, for good and for bad. Early in the season, I won't lie, there were multiple situations where I complained about him being the way that he was because when you're losing games and they have a play that's just like a weird little funky just something that's not one of your normal NFL plays that you generally see, you feel some kind of way about it, right? But nobody
Mhm.
remembers. But nobody remembers those plays. But they always remember the Philly special. They remember that fourth down run around the outside. They remember these special ones because, well, it's high risk, high reward, and that's who he is, and that's who he's always been. And it's great. It's awesome because it's working for a team that. I mean, you have a team that has no All Pros. They have no Pro Bowlers. These aren't bad players by any means. Like some of these guys definitely should have been, but objectively speaking, there are no All Pros. There are no Pro Bowlers, and he is finding ways to make this team play like a well-oiled unit. They're like not significantly different than the New York Giants, which is with a better quarterback. Uh, he is coaching out of his behind, and it is awesome. But yes, he is bold, and he's going to go for it on most fourth downs. I mean, he went for it earlier in the game on 4th and 7. And I won't lie to you, I'm in the press box yelling, "Kick it, man, kick it!" And no, and the room split in the press box even on whether you should kick it or whether you should go for it. It was a 51-yard field goal. Riley Patterson can definitely make that. But that's who this guy is from start to finish, just like Brandon Staley, I guess, in some ways. That is who he is. And you take the good and the bad. And this week it was really good. I'm just hoping it's going to keep being good next week against the Chiefs.
All right, we're going to definitely get to the Chiefs, but I just want to talk about this defense. I want to give them some love. I mean, they were down 27-0. They actually, the second half, they made some things happen, got after the Chargers. I mean, the key player to me that brings the energy that no one really talks about a lot, Arden Key. Arden
Yeah.
Key just he brings a lot of energy. The former San Francisco 49er, now Jacksonville Jaguar.
Hmm.
To me, can you just explain his impact that he has on this team?
See, Arden Key, he started the season off great, and then I think he had some injury issues. There was a few weeks in which you weren't seeing anything from him, and everyone was kind of questioning what was going to happen with that. Whether or not he was going to be here for the long term or just for a few seasons, whatever it was going to be. And it took for Trevon Walker to get hurt, and all of a sudden they just kind of started switching everything up, maybe flipping Trevon inside ever so often, putting him at the end, and it was a great time for him to show up. And now all of a sudden, I think Mike Caldwell kind of realized he had way more flexibility than he originally was using. And so now when you're moving all these guys around, finding different packages, it's kind of helped them out tremendously as far as Arden Key is concerned and the defense as a whole. So he is one really unsung hero, and he also was against the Tennessee Titans even for that game. No one was talking about him, and he led the team in pressures. It was weird. So he is absolutely someone who has shown up and shown up huge. But even when you earlier said that the defense kind of, was behind the 8 ball, they started out the game the 27-0. That defense had an incredible game for the full game, to be clear. They had a great game that whole game. Even though the score was 27-0, the Jaguars turned the ball over 3 times within the 20-yard line, 2 of those times within the 5-yard line. Like, what? You give an offense the ball, that's 21 points almost always, basically saying, hey, if you get a first down, you get 7 points. That happened 3 times in the game. So the defense, I think it was 24-0, and the Chargers had 120 total yards at that time. That's
Insane.
what I mean. So they overestimated how successful their offense was being when they actually hadn't done anything at that time. So all the Jaguars defense really did was the same thing they were doing the rest of that game. and it just wasn't working for the Chargers, and it really never did. The Jaguars just stopped turning the ball over, and everything else kind of wrote itself.
Mm. Okay. All right. All right. Now, of course, the number one corner in this team now is Mr. Tyson Campbell. I'm not going to mention that other gentleman that a lot of people
Uh,
don't aren't very fond of in Jacksonville, but Tyson Campbell has definitely shown up. I mean, he's shown the ability to catch the football more this year, which honestly, I had questions about could he actually catch and turn some of these great coverages into actual interceptions, but he's done that more this year, a little
yeah.
bit more, I should say. And it was just what can you say about him kind of maturing into that role of being the guy?
Tyson Campbell's another one of those guys, and we have a list of them at this point. And I hate to toot the horn of a Mr. Trent Baalke, but I kind of have to. Like, he has that draft class, that last draft class. Well, yeah, that last draft class was a really, really, really good class, and we all had our concerns, like you, as far as Tyson Campbell coming out. Like, was he ever going to be able to mature into that true shutdown corner, or was he just a guy who was just able to stick with guys but never get that ball, that ball handling, that ball placement issue resolved? And he has turned it around this offseason. I don't know what he did this offseason, but it absolutely from training camp, you kind of started seeing like, okay, he's making plays. All right, well, all right, maybe there's a chance, and it's been a lot more than a chance. He has been shutting down a lot of number one receivers. I believe his only big issue game was against Mr. Adams, Devontae Adams. But other than that, he's shut down a lot, if not all of the receivers he's faced with like 1 to 2 catches a game. Talking single digits with some of them. So it's been incredible, and I don't want to, and that's not to throw shade on Darius Williams, who they originally had playing only and almost exclusively slot cornerback or nickelback, and now they finally started getting him more outside after the Shaq Griffin. We'll call it a fiasco. I don't even know what it's called, that back injury thing. But yes, that. And it's been a great combination that they've finally been able to figure out with those two guys outside. That's made it really difficult on a lot of passing games.
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting to watch and watch the maturation of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the team has already matured and already has reached the mountaintop that they'll be facing on this weekend would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, it's going to be a tough task for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We all know this, but we do have to talk about some things that they can do to win this game. Now, offensively, my opinion, I think they need to run the football, kind of take the air out of the football and limit the chances for Patrick Mahomes on the field. But I just want to give get your perspective on what do you think they need to do offensively to kind of take the air out of the game or keep themselves in this game when a lot of people are counting them out.
I would agree that they absolutely do need to run the ball a lot more than they did the first time they played the Chiefs. And I believe ETN still had a 100-yard game that game, but they didn't start the game off running the ball. They did a lot of play action. I rewatched this game recently. They did a lot of play action. They had multiple 3-and-outs to start the game, even after getting the onside kick to start, squib kick to start the game. But nevertheless, even late in that game, they were still in it. And that was the funny and weird part about it. Everyone remembers that the Jaguars lost by, 14, 17, something like that. But no one remembers how they got there because that's just our short-term memory, of course. But I was just talking to someone about this yesterday. That game should have been 27-27 with 3 minutes left. And the Jaguars weren't anything close to playing their best football at that time. They had a touchdown that was returned, that was called back for an illegal man downfield, that they ended up settling for 3 points. They had 2 missed field goals. And that was in an ugly game that they did not play well. They started the game down 14-0. If they can do anything moderately similar to what they did in that last game and play the defense that they played in that game, if you can keep that Pat Mahomes team to less than 30 points, like you can't let him explode. You can't let Travis Kelce explode, etc. But if you can do what they did that first game, they have a puncher's chance. They legitimately do. And again, that should have been a 27-27 game with a chance to get the ball back then. they are playing so much better now in all aspects of the game that I'm personally, I feel confident in this game, and I know I probably shouldn't because this team does make me drink, but yeah, they absolutely can. If they can play a solid game in the way that they did the previous one, but run the ball more in the opening drives to not get down 14-0. You can't keep doing. That can't be your formula in all these wins. That's against the Raiders,
Right.
against last week. You can't keep getting down 17, 14, 10 plus. But if we can start that game like we do those second half drives, I think that would be a good formula for us to walk away, going to that AFC Championship.
Well. Okay. All right. Now, defensively, what are some things they should do? Now, I got one thing I think they should do, and that's more the shell coverage to kind of make the Chiefs kind of matriculate the ball down the field as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to giving up the big plays. But I mean, I'm pretty sure you have some other things in mind, or maybe the same thing I have in mind.
No, that was originally the playbook for a lot of teams last season against Pat Mahomes, and they made him, and he had like a 5-week time frame in which he really just struggled against it, and then eventually he just kind of figured it out, and so that's how the season kind of started this year. Is a lot of teams playing him with that same shell coverage, and again he had 2 bad weeks, and then he figured it out, and that's what the Jaguars did the first time we played against them. And it didn't work out terribly. Like, it worked out fine if we didn't have, the issues at corner that we had at the time. But with the current, health of the Jaguars, I don't believe we have anyone of importance that is on the injury report. I think we would be able to play that same general coverage and it work out just fine with, but we have to obviously sprinkle in a few issues of, cover one that's going to have to be done because it's still Pat Mahomes. You can't just sit back forever. Again, he's shown he can figure it out, and you just don't want to be that team that he busts out a 45, 50-point game against because, he has all his dogs back. But I do want to say that in that first game we played against them with all that shell coverage. Well, we did knock out 2 of their receivers in that game. Cisco, that was the one that all the Chiefs fans were raging about all week. I mean, some still are. Illegal hit. I mean, it was a legal hit, but people these days they whine about everything. They want a flag for everything. But so I know it's going to be a significantly different game with Juju healthy, with Hartman healthy, and with Tony, also Kadarius Toney.
Yes, definitely with Kadarius Toney. I mean, anyone that jumps in the air or adjusts his glove before the ball comes to you while the ball's in the air, it was some Matrix type stuff. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
But he was also doing that against, a second and third cornerbacks at the time. And that's what no one ever talked about. They were just like, hey, Kadarius Toney. And then he didn't do anything else for the next few weeks. Right? Like, that's the piece. It was against our third string corner and our second corners at the time. So now we have a full staff. They have a full staff. I don't know how that's going to look, and now I am truly curious to see what that's going to look like, because I hope our defense can stay with them, and I kind of halfway believe that they may.
Gotcha. All right, so we have reached the end of the show, but we have not reached the end of this entire podcast, which of course includes a game. I got 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. Mr. Travis Holmes, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, here we go. Fred Taylor or Jimmy Smith? Who is Mr. Jaguar to you?
Oh man, it's got to be Fred.
Fred. Okay.
It's got to be Fred. I mean, it's not because of Jimmy not being deserving. It's just because you're talking Mount Rushmore. Somebody's got to be on top, and I just think Fred did it he did it at a higher level. And I guess that's the biggest piece. And not only that, but he also is still around the team. And I think that also matters, right? Like, he has that presence on all the different shows and things of that nature. And he even has his national presence with the podcast. And I think that also helps the brand for Fred Taylor and the Jaguars. So that's my reasoning.
Okay. All right. Tom Coughlin or Doug Peterson?
That is so impossible. Oh, all right.
They weren't meant to be easy.
Oh man, I got to go with Tom for the moment. I mean, Doug may be there. Doug may get there, but I can't say that off 1 year just yet. Because Tom Coughlin, the coach, was an incredible, incredible coach, but Tom Coughlin, the GM, sabotaged Tom Coughlin, the coach. So that's the piece that I'm like, all right, well, in time, if we're just talking coaching, Tom Coughlin was that dude. And I think Peterson needs a few more years and a few more championships to get there.
All right, I'm going to go to the game this weekend. Over under 2 Jacksonville turnovers in this game versus Chiefs.
I'm gonna go. I got to go with the homer in me. I got to go under. I gotta hope. I gotta hope that there's less than 2 turnovers. If there are 2 turnovers, that we may have a problem.
All right, we're gonna go to the Jones boys. Marvin Jones or Zay Jones? Which one do you like more?
Oh, Zay Jones. Zay Jones. I mean, Marvin Jones is going to make his plays. He's going to absolutely do the things that need to be done to bring the ball in. But Zay Jones has that ability. I think Zay Jones has more of an ability between the two of them to have that 100+ yard game, that 2 touchdown game, something like that. He just has that speed against this defense that is not great. I mean, the secondary is it's not, just being objective about it. That he is that guy that can change the game for you. So I would probably just go with Zay having the bigger game.
Now, I don't call him Zay Jones. You know that, right?
I don't.
I call him Barry Gordy. Or I'm sorry. I call him Bruce Leroy, I should say, from Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Because when the first time I saw him at the press conference and I was looking, I was like,
wow,
man, where's all the other characters? Where's Vanity at? That's the first thing I thought when I saw him at the press conference when he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, he'll forever be Bruce Leroy to me.
Wow. I wonder if anybody's ever told him that. Oh man, I want to tell him that. Oh, that's awesome though. Yeah, that's a good fit. That is a great fit with that hair. Yeah, he got that nice juices and berries hair. All right, cool.
All right, and the last one, Josh Allen or Trayvon Walker. Which one do you pick to have the bigger game this Saturday?
I mean, bigger games got to be Josh Allen between the two of them, because Josh Allen is normally the one who's going to show up more on the stat sheet. Trayvon Walker, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, and just like his days at Georgia, he is the guy that makes or breaks the defense. He's the guy that makes it all work. Unfortunately, he rarely ever shows on the stat sheet in that way. Like, they're double teaming him, and then Josh Allen picks up that sack because now he has that man-on-man defense, or Arden Key, whoever it may be. But normally he's not the one to get the sack because he's the one that's getting the attention. Gotcha.
Now we've reached the end of the questions, and you're off the hot seat, man. So we have reached we have reached the end of the show. I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking about a little bit of Jacksonville Jaguar football with me as they go into a matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round of the AFC. It's going to be an interesting game. Definitely going to be cold. I think it might be a little snow there potentially. So we'll see if that happens. But I want to, of course, again, thank you for coming on. And, if you want to tell everyone what you're working on, what you got going on, the floor is yours, or where they can find you too. The floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Facebook, Travis D. Holmes. You can find me on Twitter, Trav Likes Bacon, because I just happen to be one of those rare vegans who love meat. Weird. Again, now that our home schedule is done, no longer doing the home schedule slate of the Jaguars, so I'm only covering everything on on a consulting basis as far as play-by-play breakdown. So I am entering that off-season mode as it currently stands. So I want to take some few weeks off and I don't know, go on a vacation somewhere. Still talking about that with the wife, but once the season starts back up next year, you can find me again with student of the game, Mr. Kyle Nash, A7BN Sports, and I'm normally behind the scenes, but felt like making my presence known. So I appreciate you having me on, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.